أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 221, Surah Al-Ahzab, Ayah number 36 to 44. وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. It is not for a believing man or a believing woman that when Allah and His Messenger have decided a matter, that they should thereafter have any choice about their affair. وَمَا كَانَ. What does it mean by مَا كَانَ? مَا كَانَ, this is nafi, negation, of imkan, of possibility, meaning it is not possible, it is not allowed, it is not correct, it does not befit, it does not behoove, who? A believing man and a believing woman. It is not possible for them to do this. It is not allowed for them to do this. It is not correct for them to do this. They have no right to do this. It is not fitting for them. For who? لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ. For any believing man or any believing woman. If you notice, mu'minin, mu'minatin has been mentioned. No matter which believing man, believing woman he or she is, no matter what their status, no matter how strong their iman is, it does not befit them. It is not right for them. What is not right for them? That إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا. That when Allah and His Messenger have decided about a matter. قَضَى. What does it mean by qada? To decide about something, to make a decision concerning something, decree, and it's done by qawl and also by fi'l. By qawl, that when you give a verdict, when you make a decision, when you have decreed something, like for example in the Quran we learn, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ. And your Lord has decided. Qada. He has judged this. He has decided this. And secondly, qada is also by fi'l, by action. What does it mean by that? To fulfill something, to do something. Like, وَاللَّهُ يَقْضِي بِالْحَقِّ. Allah, He judges by the truth. He does that which is right. Similarly, about Musa a.s. we learned that فَقَضَى عَلَيْهِ, that Musa a.s. he hit that man, and what happened? He decided his matter, meaning he killed him. Completed his affair. Similarly, we learn in the Quran, فَقَضَاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He made the heavens into 7. Qada. By what? By action. So over here, qada, this is by word, by qawl. That when Allah and His Messenger have decided a matter, amran, they have decided a matter, they have made a decision concerning an issue. And this decision, this amr, this is regarding a shari'i matter. This is regarding a shari'i matter. Meaning, a shari'i law that Allah or His Messenger have given to us. Once they have made that decision, it does not suit a believer, it is not allowed for him, أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. That they should have any choice with regards to their affair. Which affair of theirs? The affair with regards to which Allah and His Messenger have decided. So, it is not allowed for them, it is not possible for them that they should have khiyara. What does khiyara mean? Choice, an option. To have the ability to pick, to select, to choose one thing. And it's from khair. Khair is what? Good. What do people typically choose? That which they find good. And if they find something slightly bad, even they will not choose it for themselves. What do people choose? That which is good for themselves. So it is not allowable for believers that once Allah and His Messenger have decided a matter, that the believers should have a choice with regards to it. Choice with regards to it? Meaning of doing it or leaving it. Accepting it or rejecting it. No. A believer does not have a choice then. He does not have a choice to go against the decision of Allah and His Messenger. He has to accept it as it is. He cannot alter it. He cannot refuse it. He cannot neglect it. No, he has to accept it. It is wajib on him. It is an obligation on him that he must accept the decision of Allah and His Messenger. And there's a warning that وَمَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ, and whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger. How? That Allah and His Messenger have made a decision, and what does a person do? He doesn't accept it. He thinks he has a choice with regard to that matter. So he goes against it. He does not take it, rather he goes against it. So whoever disobeys Allah and His Messenger, فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا, then in fact he has strayed clearly. ضَلَّ, he has lost the way. What kind of losing is it? What kind of misguidance is it? ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا, a dalal, a misguidance that is clear. Meaning, a person who disobeys Allah and His Messenger is clearly misguided. His misguidance is evident. There is no doubt about him being wrong. There is no doubt about him going astray. Because once a person disobeys, then he's going astray. And if he disobeys once, can he disobey again? Of course he can. If he thinks he has a choice with regards to one matter, will he think that he has a choice with regards to another matter? Of course. It will lead to more and more things, more and more acts of disobedience. So whoever disobeys Allah, then his misguidance, it is evident. And not just disobeying Allah, but also His Messenger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created people, and He has created them with a free will. Freedom of choice. If you look around you, the creation, above you, below you, around you, it does not have any choice. The sun, the moon, they don't have any free will. كُلُّ لَهُ قَانِتُونَ, all are devoutly obedient to Him. They don't have a choice. They have to do whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told them. However, when it comes to human beings have been given choice, freedom. And though this choice is limited, this freedom is limited, that a person cannot just do whatever he wants. He cannot accomplish everything he desires. But he does have the ability to do something or to not do something. He has the choice to accept or to reject. He has that freedom. When he's told to do something, he can say no. He can disobey. Whereas other creatures, they cannot say no. They cannot disobey. They accept. They do whatever they're commanded. Now we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for the guidance of people, for the guidance of human beings, who has He sent? Messengers and also books. And Allah has clearly told people the difference between right and wrong. What is good and what is not good. What Allah likes, what Allah does not like. What takes you closer to Allah, what takes you farther away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But still, the human being has the ability to accept that or reject that. He has the ability to accept Allah's command or refuse to obey. He has that ability. What do we see in this ayah? That a true believer, who is he? Whenever he learns of a command that has come from Allah and His Messenger, he doesn't say, I choose not to do it. No. What is his way? His way is of obedience. His way is of submission, of acceptance. That Allah has decided this, the Messenger has decided this, they have commanded this, therefore he will accept it. Now remember that the decisions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are two types. First of all, kawni, and secondly, shari'i. Kawni, like for example, the lifespan of someone. Do you have any choice with regards to that? Do you? Can you choose how long you will live? You cannot. So, when it comes to kawni affairs, people don't have any choice. But when it comes to shari'i affairs, do people have the ability to either accept or reject? They do. Like for example, the command of Allah to pray. The command of Allah to pray. A person can accept or he can refuse to pray. But what kind of submission is required from the believers? A mu'min and a mu'minah. Complete submission. Whether you like it or not, whether you find it easy or difficult, if Allah has given you a shari'i command, if the Messenger has commanded you with something, then what are you supposed to do? Accept. And if a person does not accept, he does not obey, then he's heading towards what? misguidance. وَمَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا. We learn in Surah An-Nur, Ayah 63, فَلْيَحْذَرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. That those people who go against the command of the Prophet ﷺ, they should be afraid lest some fitna should strike them, some calamity should befall them, or a painful punishment should come their way. So when a person disobeys Allah and His Messenger, then what happens? He is inviting trouble. The first trouble that he invites is misguidance. And after that, fitna, adabun alim. وَمَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا. So if a person disobeys, what do we see? There are severe consequences in this dunya and also in akhirah. Therefore, for one's own betterment, what should a believer do? Accept the decision of Allah and His Messenger, whether you like it or you don't like it. Now, when it comes to obeying the command of Allah, understood, He is our Khaliq, the Muhsin, the one who has given us everything, Mun'im, Mudabbir. So yes, obedience to His commands, understandable. But why is it that obedience to the Messenger is also of equal importance? Why do you think so? Because it has been said over here, إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ مَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. Because whatever the Messenger ﷺ will command, whatever he will instruct, that will be what Allah has told him. Because مَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى, he wouldn't speak out of his own desire, out of his own whims. He would only communicate what Allah had commanded him to do so. And مَن يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهِ. Whoever obeys the Messenger, then in fact he has obeyed who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And disobedience to the Messenger is disobedience to who? To the one who sent him. Because who is the Messenger? What is he doing? What is his responsibility? To convey what Allah has told him. So if you don't accept what the Messenger is telling you, in other words, you're not accepting what the one who sent him is telling you. Obedience to the Messenger is obedience to the one who sent him. Disobedience to the Messenger is disobedience to the one who sent him. And if you see, the command is very, very strong. That إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا, any matter, any command, once they have decided, a believer does not have any choice. And if a person disobeys, then he's clearly in error. Now there are many people who believe in the Qur'an and think it's extremely necessary to follow the Qur'an, to recite it, to respect it. But when it comes to the Sunnah, they disregard it completely. When it comes to the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, they don't accept them. When it comes to his instructions, what do they say? It's only a Sunnah. Isn't it so? And unfortunately, this is the case with many knowledgeable people as well. That they will differentiate between the command of Allah and the command of the Messenger. This is not correct. Whatever the Messenger has told us, it is equally important for us to accept and obey. Whatever He has commanded us. Because what does this ayah tell us? When Allah and His Messenger, when they have decided a matter. So whether the instruction is coming from the Qur'an or it is coming from the Sunnah, whether the prohibition is coming from the Qur'an or the Sunnah, it's equally important for us to comply. We cannot choose over there. And at the beginning of the surah, what did we learn? النَّبِيُّ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ. That the Prophet ﷺ is closer to the believers than themselves. What does it mean by that? That we cannot prefer ourselves over him. We cannot prefer our desires over his instructions. Why? Because whatever he told us is something that is necessary for us. And another meaning of that part of the ayah is what? That we cannot be as well wishing for ourselves as the Prophet ﷺ is. He is closer to us than ourselves. That he is more sincere to us. So think about it. Every command, every instruction that has come from the Prophet ﷺ, is it for our good? Of course it is for our good. Think about it. When you enter the washroom and you make dua, you follow the Sunnah. Isn't it for our own good? And if we say, oh, it's only Sunnah. Where does it say in the Qur'an you have to say this dua before going to the washroom? But when you make that dua, aren't you protecting yourself? Aren't you remembering Allah? Aren't you increasing in your hasanat? Of course. So, the Prophet ﷺ, everything that he taught us is for our own benefit, our own good. So we cannot disregard his commands. And the purpose of the coming of the messenger was to explain this deen to us. Show us practically how to implement it, how to follow it. This is why his sunnah is called hikmah. It tells you where to put what, how, in what way, at what time. We learn in Surah Al-Nahl, Ayah 44, that وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ. And we have revealed to you the message that you may make clear to the people what was sent down to them. This was why the Prophet ﷺ came. Now, the reason behind the revelation of this ayah, that the Prophet ﷺ, he wished to get his cousin, the daughter of his paternal aunt, Zaynab bint Jahsh. He wished to get her married to his freed slave, Zayd bin Harithah. But because there was a big clash in the sense of family, that one was a Qurayshi and the other was a freed slave, it is said that the family of Zaynab radiallahu anha and her herself, they found it difficult to accept this proposal. So, when this ayah was revealed, she accepted immediately. That the Prophet of Allah is suggesting me, the Prophet of Allah is telling me to marry him. So she accepted. It is also said that this verse was revealed concerning the wife of Julaybib. It is said that any of the Ansar of Medina, if they had a daughter, or if they had any female relative like a sister, they would not arrange a marriage for her until they found out that the Prophet ﷺ wanted to marry her or not. You understand? If they had any female relative, they wouldn't get her married unless and until they made sure that the Prophet ﷺ did not wish to marry her. If there was even a slightest chance that the Prophet ﷺ would propose, then what would they do? They would not let their daughter get married to anybody else. And if they were sure that no, he doesn't wish to get married to her, then what would they do? They would get her married to somebody else. Now we learned that the Prophet ﷺ, he said to one of the Ansar, Zawijni ibnatak, that give me your daughter for marriage. So he said, yes, O Messenger of Allah, it would be an honor for me and a blessing. So he said, Inni lastu uriduha li nafsi, I'm not asking her for myself. So then he said, then for whom? He said, for Julaybib. So then he responded, I will consult her mother. He didn't say yes. He said, I will consult her mother. Because Julaybib, he was not really a person who was very impressive. He was someone who was poor, wasn't even that good looking, wasn't impressive in any way whatsoever. So he said that I will consult her mother. So he went to her and he told her that this is what the Prophet ﷺ has said. And she said, no way, by Allah, we will never ever get our daughter married to Julaybib. So when the man saw that his wife was not ready to agree, he was going to go to the Prophet ﷺ and tell him. As he was about to leave, the daughter came and she said, are you refusing to follow the command of the Messenger of Allah? Are you refusing his request, his instruction? Follow his command, for I will not come to any harm. If he is telling me, if he wants this marriage for me, then there is khair in it. I will not suffer from any harm whatsoever. So then her parents, they agreed. They went to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ got her married to Julaybib. And we learned that once the Prophet ﷺ, he went out for one of the expeditions in battle. And Julaybib, radiyallahu anhu, he went with him. And after the battle was over, the Prophet ﷺ asked the people, check, have you lost anyone? Have you lost anyone? Has anyone died? Go and check in the people who have been killed. So they went and checked and they said, okay, so and so and so and so. The Prophet ﷺ said, go and check again. Have you lost anyone? I don't find Julaybib. I have lost Julaybib. People were saying, oh, we have lost so and so. We have lost so and so. The Prophet ﷺ said, I have lost Julaybib. And then they found him dead around 7 of the enemy who were also killed. So perhaps he had killed all those 7 people before he was killed himself. Just imagine. And the Prophet ﷺ buried him himself. And the Prophet ﷺ made dua for his wife. That Allahumma sabba alayha al-khayra sabban wa la taj'al 'ayshaha kaddan. That, oh Allah, pour blessings upon her. Sab. You know what sab means? What? Abundant rain. Endless. When it's raining endlessly. So, Allahumma sabba alayha al-khayra. Send down good upon her endlessly. Pour blessings upon her. And do not make her life difficult. And this happened. This is how it was. It is said that there was no woman in Medina beside her, no widow who was sought after for marriage as much as she was. Meaning the way people proposed to her, no other woman was proposed in that way. Because the Prophet ﷺ prayed for her that don't make her life hard. Just imagine a young woman being a widow. How difficult her life would be. But the Prophet ﷺ prayed for her. What do we see? The barakah of obeying the command of the Messenger. No matter how hard you find, no matter how difficult you find it, no matter how much it goes against your desires, no matter how much people go against it, they discourage you. But we see that if a person obeys a command of the Messenger, then there is only khair. There is only benefit. What do we learn from this ayah? Many, many lessons. First of all, we learn in this ayah that of the requirements of Iman is what? That a person does not go against the command of Allah and His Messenger. It is of the requirements of Iman. This is a requirement that if a person says, I'm a mu'min, mu'minah, then what does it mean? He does not go against any command of Allah and His Messenger. Any command. It's a requirement of Iman. This ayah also shows to us that the stronger the Iman of a person, the stronger his obedience will be. Because وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ. It's not possible for a believing man or a believing woman that he would have a choice after Allah and His Messenger have commanded something. What does it show? That the stronger the Iman, what's going to happen? The stronger the obedience. And each time the Iman increases, it grows stronger, his obedience also will grow. And on the contrary, the weaker the Iman, the weaker the obedience. So if we want to check what the level of our Iman is, what do we need to check? Our actions, how much do we obey? How much do we comply? Or is it that we're always choosing? Then we also see in this ayah that the commands of the Prophet ﷺ, they're equally important to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Equally important because both are mentioned. Allah and His Messenger. Also this shows to us, this ayah, that every single command of Allah and His Messenger, what is it? It is good for us. Because if Allah has not left us with any choice, then what does it mean? It's good for us. It's for our own benefit. We would be given a choice if it was harmful in some way. But because we have not been given a choice, what does it show? It's all good. When you obey, when you adhere to the commands, you'll only find benefit. Yes, you may find challenges, you may find it difficult, but in the long run, it will only bring you good. In this dunya and also in the akhirah. Then we also see that ma'asiyah, disobedience, what is that? What is that? Dalal. Disobedience is what? Misguidance. And the greater the disobedience, the more the disobedience, the more misguided a person is. The more evident his misguidance is. Because what has been said? وَمَنْ يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا. That the more a person disobeys, the more he is misguided. The greater his disobedience, the greater his misguidance as well. And we also see that disobedience to the Prophet ﷺ is equal to disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's listen to the recitation of this ayah.
وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ وَمَن يَعْصِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَقَدْ ضَلَّ ضَلَالًا مُبِينًا.
وَإِذْ تَقُولُ لِلَّذِي أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. And remember when you said to the one on whom Allah bestowed a favor. وَأَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِ. And you also bestowed favor. وَإِذْ, meaning وَذْكُرْ is. And remember this, mention this. That تَقُولُ, you were saying, and you refers to who? The Prophet ﷺ. You were saying to who? لِلَّذِي, to the person who? أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. Allah bestowed favor upon him. أَنْعَمَ, يُنْعِمُ, إِنْعَام. What does it mean? To bestow favor, to show favor, to give ni'mah. So how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon him, and who is this person? It refers to Zayd ibn Harithah, the freed slave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whom he had also adopted as his son. So what was the favor of Allah upon Zayd radhiyallahu anhu? The blessing of Islam. If you remember, when the Prophet ﷺ told the people, who was the first one to believe in him? His wife Khadija radhiyallahu anha. Amongst the men, Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. Amongst the slaves, Zayd radhiyallahu anhu. He was of the first people to become Muslim. This was a huge blessing of Allah. He was also very young. And he was a freed slave. So, what do we see? That this was a huge favor of Allah upon him. أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ. And also, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him in the way of making him the slave of who? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Just imagine, how were slaves treated? Bilal radhiyallahu anhu, how was he treated by his master? How was he treated? Such a harsh way. So many slaves, they were treated in such a cruel fashion by their masters. But we see that Zayd ibn Harithah, the Prophet ﷺ, he treated him so well. Who was Zayd radhiyallahu anhu? He was from Qabila Kalb, the tribe of Kalb. And his father's name was Harithah. It is said that when Zayd radhiyallahu anhu, he was only about 8 years old, very, very young, their tribe was raided. And he was one of those few children who were taken as captives. Because whenever they would raid, they would attack one another, they would also take whoever they could find, men, women, children, and they would take them as captives. So, he was one of those children who had been taken as captives, and the raiders, what did they do? They sold these children as slaves. So, he was sold as a slave, and who bought him? The nephew of Khadija radhiyallahu anha, Hakim ibn al-Hizam. He bought him from Ta'if. He came to Makkah, and he gifted Zayd to who? Khadija radhiyallahu anha, his aunt. He gifted him to her. Khadija radhiyallahu anha, when she got married to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she gifted Zayd radhiyallahu anha to who? To the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it is also said that because Zayd radhiyallahu anha was so good in his habits, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for him. Just imagine. And what happened then? Soon after, while the Prophet ﷺ was still in Makkah, the father of Zayd radhiyallahu anhu, he found Zayd. Because imagine he was in Makkah, so anybody in Makkah, very easy to find them. So he was looking for his son, and eventually he found him. So when he came and found him, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, I'll give you whatever you ask, just give my son to me. I'll buy his freedom from you. The Prophet ﷺ said, it's his choice. I leave it to him. So he gave the choice to Zayd. You decide. You want to go with your family? Go. I'm not going to stop you. If you want to stay with me, you're more than welcome. You know what he chose? The Prophet ﷺ. And that is the time when the Prophet ﷺ freed him, and he announced that Zayd was his son. He declared him as his adopted son. So, this was a huge blessing of Allah upon Zayd radhiyallahu anhu, that how Allah protected him. If you think about it, he could have ended up in the house of Abu Jahl, but he ended up in the house of the Prophet ﷺ, where he wasn't just treated very well, but he got the blessing of Islam as well, being of the first people to become Muslim, and then being the adopted son of the Prophet ﷺ. Just imagine. He was declared. Later on that was abolished, as you know. So, أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَأَنْعَمْتَ عَلَيْهِ. And you also favored him. How did the Prophet ﷺ favor him? This whole story that I mentioned to you, of how he freed him, treated him so well, and declared him as his son, taught him. And Zayd radhiyallahu anhu, when he grew up, what happened? When he was of marriageable age, the Prophet ﷺ wanted him to get married to someone. But he didn't want that he should get married to like just any other person. Who did he want? Someone from the noble tribe of Quraysh. And who did he choose? His own cousin, Zaynab bint Jahsh, radhiyallahu anha. This was also a huge favor. And we see that the Prophet ﷺ, he proposed Zaynab bint Jahsh for Zayd radhiyallahu anha. He arranged for the marriage. He got them both married. And also, he gave the mahr as well on behalf of Zayd radiallahu anhu. Just as the father of a boy would give the mahr to the boy's wife as a huge gift on his son. So this is how generous the Prophet ﷺ was towards him. And we see that this marriage was something that was very unusual and very, very strange. Because who was getting married? A freed slave and a woman of Quraysh. Something unthinkable. Unthinkable. But the Prophet ﷺ, he wanted the best for Zayd radiallahu anhu. The best for him. And he also wanted to show equality amongst people. So this is why he got the two of them married. And this happened in the 4th year after Hijrah. And we see that initially, Zainab radiallahu anha, she was a bit reluctant. Why? Because of the difference in their status. But the Prophet ﷺ insisted. He told her, and she accepted. Wasn't this a huge favor upon him? It was a huge favor. You know, people who get married and somebody else has told them about, their spouse, that, you should get married to so-and-so. And when they get married, they're happy. They're so thankful. So-and-so got me married. So-and-so helped me in my marriage. They're so grateful to them. So this was a huge favor of the Prophet ﷺ upon Zayd radiallahu anhu. So the Prophet ﷺ, when he was saying to him, Amsik alayka zawjak, keep your wife, retain your wife. What does it mean by this? Do not divorce her. Why did he have to say this to him? Because as I mentioned to you earlier, both of them, Zayd radiallahu anhu and Zainab radiallahu anha, they were very different. One was a freed slave, the other was a Qurayshi. And although both of them were good people, they had very good habits, they were righteous people, but because of the differences they had, they were not compatible. They could just not get along with one another. And it was especially difficult for Zainab radiallahu anhu to accept him as her husband. It was difficult for her to mentally accept him as her husband because she belonged to a very prestigious family. And there were clashes, they weren't able to get along. And Zayd radiallahu anhu, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he complained to him about her. And he expressed his desire to divorce her. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, Amsik alayka zawjak, keep your wife, do not divorce her. What does imsak mean? To hold on to something, to not let go of it. And he said to him, Wattaqillaha, fear Allah. Why did the Prophet ﷺ say this to Zayd? Fear Allah, meaning fear Allah concerning your wife, your marriage. Because many times what happens? If a person is not getting along with their spouse, they will go and discuss the problem with someone else. And when they're discussing the problem, it's quite possible that they mention the other person's faults, their bad habits, or the problems in them. So wattaqillaha, fear Allah. Don't think bad about her. Don't say bad about her. Don't be hasty. Don't take a wrong step. Fear Allah in the matter of divorcing her. But what happened eventually? Zayd radiallahu anhu, he divorced her. Why? They could not get along with one another. It was very, very difficult. Why did the Prophet ﷺ told him to not divorce his wife? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had already told him, revealed to him, that when Zayd would divorce his wife, you have to marry her. Why? Why? To establish that a man can marry the ex-wife of his adopted son. Remember earlier we learned that in the Arab society, this concept of tabanni was very, very common. That a person would declare another as his adopted son, but he would be considered as his real son. Which is why he would inherit, which is why his ex-wife would be unlawful for the father. And this practice, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was completely abolishing. And how was He abolishing it? Where did He start it from? The family of the Prophet ﷺ. Because if this has happened in his family, then after that it can happen in any family. So it was set as a precedent. There's absolutely nothing wrong. It was considered as a munkar, as something that was completely wrong to marry the ex-wife of your adopted son. So the Prophet ﷺ was already told that he had to do this. But obviously, think about it, he was afraid. Why? He was going to commit something that was considered as a munkar in that society. Something that was considered very, very wrong. Not acceptable at all. One is to declare that this is permissible. And the other is to do it. Isn't there a difference? A huge difference. It could have been declared as well. It's permissible to marry the ex-wife of your adopted son. But there's a difference when the Prophet ﷺ did it himself. And for him to do it, it was extremely difficult for him. Because he was going against the tradition, the culture of that entire society. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَتُخْفِي فِي نَفْسِكَ, and you were hiding in yourself, مَاللَّهُ مُبْدِيهِ, what Allah was going to reveal. وَتُخْفِي فِي نَفْسِكَ, تُخْفِي خَافَيَ, to conceal, to hide. You were hiding in your heart, in yourself, مَاللَّهُ مُبْدِيهِ, what Allah was going to reveal. Mubdi, from the root letters, badal, wow. What does that mean? To expose, to reveal. So Allah was going to reveal it. You were trying to hide it. How? By telling Zayd, keep your wife, don't divorce her. But what happened? He eventually divorced her. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was going to expose it. It is said about this part of the ayah, that if the Prophet ﷺ would have concealed any part of the Qur'an, he would have concealed this part. If the fact that he said this, وَتُخْفِي فِي نَفْسِكَ مَا اللَّهُ مُبْدِيهِ, he passed this on to us, shows that he did not hide any part of the Qur'an from us. He conveyed everything. وَتُخْفِي فِي نَفْسِكَ مَا اللَّهُ مُبْدِيهِ وَتَخْشَى النَّاسِ, and you were fearing the people. You were afraid of the people. This is why you were hiding this in your heart. Because you were afraid of the people. That the people would say, he has married his son's wife. You were afraid of the people. This is the reason why you didn't tell Zayd to divorce his wife. وَاللَّهُ أَحَقُّ أَن تَخْشَى, and Allah, He is more deserving that you fear Him. You see, fear is a natural feeling. Fear of people, fear of different things. It's a natural feeling. It's not necessarily a weakness. Musa a.s. being a messenger of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was speaking to him, and what happened? When he saw the staff turn into snake, he was terrified. He ran away. When he saw the magic of the magicians, again he was terrified. Fear is a natural feeling. But fear, it is wrong when it prevents a person from obeying the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see, fear is of different levels as well. Sometimes you have more fear, sometimes you have less fear. Some things you are less afraid of, other things you are more afraid of. Isn't it so? You have different levels of fear. And no matter who a person is, how righteous, they can get afraid. So whenever you get afraid of anything, don't think you're so weak. Okay? It's a natural feeling. It's normal to feel afraid. The Prophet ﷺ felt afraid. Musa ﷺ felt afraid. It's only natural to be fearful. However, fear is a problem when it prevents you from obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.